Hello and welcome to another absolutely beautiful September morning here in sunny Nova Scotia. So we've had our hurricane blow through, Hurricane Dorian, a couple of weeks ago now, I think, a couple of weekends ago. Didn't do too much damage. Blew some of the sunflowers over a bit and just lent a few things over. Didn't really destroy much of my my vegetable garden. But we're in September now. It's still a beautiful day here, and we've had another couple of beautiful days, but we've had a couple of frosts, so I've had to busily protect some of the plants. But my flowers actually haven't been touched. It was only a light frost. But we're in autumn now, aren't we? We're in September, and the flowering season's sort of meandering to the end. I've still got beautiful sunflowers showing away their sunshine. Really lovely plants at the moment. My gladioli are still flowering away, and the black-eyed Susans are doing their autumn thing, and I've even got sweet peas still going nicely. But we need to be thinking about next year. So I've got 5 things that you should be doing now to make sure that you have beautiful plants, beautiful flowers for next year, and bigger and stronger and more veg for next year. So why don't you join me over the next few minutes, and I'll give you those 5 essential tips to make sure you have beautiful flowers and vegetables next year. So number 1 of my tips of making sure you have bigger, better, more flowers next year is take seeds. All of the plants, my plants like Aquilegia and these foxgloves are now starting to set seed, and you can see closely this one here has even started to open up now, and it's probably dropped some of its seed. And let me see if I can show you. If I tap that, you can see that there's lots of little seeds in there. So taking seeds, foxgloves are obviously biennials, so you may not. Sometimes they flower in the first year after you've taken the seed, but a good thing now is at least to take the seed, and then we can sow it next spring, and then you'll have the flower will grow up as these have next year, and either flower next year or flower the year after. But the way to do it is, let me put this down a sec. So we've got the seed heads. You can either cut this seed head off now and then put it in some sort of brown paper bag and let the seed heads dry out, or you can, as you can see, these bottom seed heads here, this seed head here, you can literally just pick these off and put these in a brown paper bag. Or these older brown ones, you can actually, like I've done here, just tap them out onto a piece of paper, and then I get an envelope, and I'll just drop these in this envelope, and I'll go around all of these, and these are these beautiful pinky classic foxgloves, and I've got some lovely white ones, pinky white ones that I'm going to be taking in a minute. And let's have a quick look at, so obviously you need to mark up the envelope to make sure you know which one's which, but I'll leave these by the foxglove a sec. We'll have a quick look at the Aquilegia. So here we've got some lovely, the lovely seed heads from Aquilegia, or Columbine, as they're often known, or Granny's bonnets, as they're often known. You have those lovely covered heads. Beautiful flowers in the early spring, and they seed quite freely around the garden. But if you want to take the seeds, these are very easy to seed, and they grow from seed really easy. And you can tell there's lots of seeds in there still, because you give them a rattle, you may not be able to hear that. There's lots of seeds in these seed heads. So again, to get ourselves an envelope. And a good way here is literally just to cut it off, take the seeds, and just turn them upside down and give them a rattle inside your envelope. There's a few left in there still, but I've literally got hundreds in there already. So you can go around taking all of these seed heads and you'll have enough seeds for the next couple of 100 years, I reckon. But free plants are great, so I would advise going around all your plants with any seeds in there that you want to take seeds from, and these we'll sow these, and I'll be doing a video next spring, and we'll sow these next spring, these and the foxglove, etc. And obviously we're waiting for sunflowers. When the sunflowers start to finish flowering and they develop their seed heads before the birds steal all those lovely seeds that they like, it's good to take some sunflower seeds as well. Yeah, so take seeds, more flowers for free. So we've had a lovely summer here in Nova Scotia. It's been lovely and hot, pretty dry, and I've had some cracking flowers, but some things haven't worked, some things have worked, some things haven't worked. So this time of year is a really good time to sort of take stock of your garden when everything is still, you know, pretty high. You haven't cut anything back for the winter, and so it's a good time to sort of have a look around the garden and think what's worked and what hasn't worked, what would look better probably somewhere else, you know. So like for instance, this grass here, when I planted it, this daylily, even though I sort of knew it was going to be big, was all the way down the ground, hardly grown at all. And I'm feeling it's a bit swamped. It's a bit swamped by the Shasta daisy behind, and it's not working, you know, with the dark background. So I'm going to move it. Now there's different schools of thought, there's different thinking on this. You can either move it now and, you know, take advantage of the nice warm soil we've still got. You're going to get a few frosts, but our weather forecast at the moment is, you know, for quite a couple of weeks of nice warm weather, and it's often like that here in Nova Scotia. So I'm going to move this now. Or you could again take stock, think what's worked, what hasn't worked, and maybe take some photographs, and then think about, right, I'm going to move this next year, and knowing what your photograph is, take that and move it next spring when it's, you know, when they're all ready to get going. I'll do that with different things, but I'm feeling that I'm going to move this year. So second tip, take stock of your garden, have a look around, what's worked, what hasn't worked. You can either move it now or take photographs and move it in the spring. So it doesn't have to be things that don't work if you want to move them. For instance, all these foxgloves here, got a big pile of them here, and they obviously like it, otherwise they wouldn't have seeded, but I can move these, some of these. I don't want all of them in this one particular area, so why don't I just move a few of these to another area? It might be a bit bare of plants, one of the new areas that I'm developing, and again, we've got free plants, increasing our stock of beautiful plants in the right places for next year. So another thing you're going to be doing at this time of year is obviously cutting back all your old plants. The plants are just about to die when the frost hits and the winter hits. So let's get amongst cutting them back, and don't waste it. Let's get it in the compost heap. Turn it into all that beautiful fuel that your plants need to grow those beautiful flowers next year. So let's have a look at the compost heap and see what I'm putting in there. So here we are in the engine room of the compost area, the compostarium, and here are some of the daylilies that I've just cut all the way back earlier. So these are all basically green stuff now. We want as much of these in as possible, and you could throw them in like this, that'd be okay, but it's much easier if you cut them down as much as possible to create more of a surface area for all the bugs and the worms and all that sort of stuff, to break down the greens a lot quicker. So you want to make them as small as possible, and it's a bit of a pain. I'm more manual here, basically doing it with these, or my bigger cutters. If you've got an electric or gas powered shredder or chipper, then that's all the better. You can break things down really small. But either way, get it all down as much as is possible, create that big surface area. And I've got all the kitchen waste as well that I'm putting in there, and the bags themselves. So any brown bags, untreated cardboard or brown bags, we're just cutting them, shredding them down as much as is possible. And that sort of counteracts the greens that you're putting in with more carbon. So all your dried grasses, etc., that you'll start cutting down soon. Again, they're the more carbon, and 50-50 green and brown stuff, 60-40 green brown stuff. That's, you know, that'll do you, and that'll help to accelerate your compost making. And I'll do another video exactly on compost making, but you know, it's an important thing, and as much as you can do as possible to compost all your old stuff, the better your plants will be when you lay all that beautiful fuel down onto the ground, whether it is as a mulch or you're using it as the soil itself. It's going to do absolutely wonders for your plants next year. Right, so closely related to the compost area, but it's actually different because it breaks down different, is leaf mould. So it's around 22nd. What is it? So it's the 22nd of September, and as we say here in North America, fall is just around the corner, and you need to prep for it. It's a massive source of material to help in your garden. I've got I'm lucky enough here, I've got a fairly big sized garden, and I've got a big chicken wire area, and all last year's leaves I've dumped in here, and underneath here they're starting to break down. As you can see, they're quite wet here, and this is a couple of years old leaf mould, but this is absolutely gold when it comes to mulching. One of the great sources of mulch that you can use in your flower beds and in your vegetable beds, etc. Brilliant source, and there's a link up there on a video on how good, the different ways you can use mulch. But as you can see, this is a couple of years old and it's broken down, and even so it's still not completely broken down, but it's great, crumbly, beautiful stuff. Hardly any weeds in there at all. But get yourself, whether it be a bin or even a couple of black bin bags, and start collecting. As soon as the fall comes, the leaves start coming off the trees, just start collecting those leaves, put them all in a bag. If you can shred them up with a lawnmower, just run them over, get a big pile of the leaves, run over them with a lawnmower, and then stick them all in a bag, or if you're lucky like me, a bigger areas you can, as many leaves as possible you want to collect them, because they are absolute gold dust. It makes absolutely fantastic mulch, and your plants will really appreciate that next year. Or in this case, it normally takes a couple of years for a good leaf mould to break down really well, but in a couple of years time your plants will absolutely love this mulch. And then once you get your first set of leaf mould going, you'll have it every single year then. I can't stress how fantastic it helps my plants, keeping them moist, keeping the weeds down, etc. And that's all going to go into that, helping your plants grow more beautiful and better throughout the year. So on to the last one, number 5. So tip number 5, all things bulbs. So we're coming to September now, so all your should be thinking about your spring flowering bulbs now, your tulips, daffodils, all those sorts of different things, irises. Now you don't want to plant them just yet, but you want to think about, I would have hoped you would have thought about buying them now. Probably, and I'll be doing a video later on these, but sort of middle of October, you want to think about planting your spring flowering bulbs. But obviously if you come around to October and you go to buy them, there probably aren't going to be any left, so you might want to think about starting to purchase, if you haven't already, purchase your spring flowering bulbs. And also all these beautiful, some of these gladioli here are still, I've still got some flowering, and beautiful they are too, although this one's had fallen over, it's gone a bit wonky, but there's beauty in wonkiness as well. But a lot of people's summer flowering bulbs will have gone over now, so you want to think about lifting them. And basically all you've got to do is dig them out of the actual out of the ground, and there's our is one of our gladioli here, and it's got little corms or little bulblets around the edges here. But basically what you want to do now is put this in a shady place and let it dry out. Let it dry out for a couple of weeks before the frosts hit it, and once it's dried out, we'll store it in some nice dry compost, or some leaf mould, or some dry mushroom compost, in a box in a dark, cool area. But again, I'll be doing a dedicated video on your summer flowering bulb. And the same with the dahlias and the cannas. Some of those things are still flowering beautifully at the moment, even though I had that little bit of frost the other day. They managed to navigate that, negotiate it without being all blasted. But they're still flowering. But soon, as soon as the frost hits, you want to be lifting those. And again, like I said, I'll be doing a video on those in particular. But all these gladioli that are going over now, good time to lift them, let them dry out, start to prepare them for their winter hibernation. So there we go, 5 things you should be doing now for bigger and better and more flowers next year. We've got, make sure you're harvesting all the seeds of things like Aquilegia and your foxgloves and all those different plants, sunflowers, etc. Have a look around your garden, see what worked, what hasn't worked. Do some moving around, do some dividing of things like hostas and all your different herbaceous plants. You can divide them now, but just have a look around and do a bit of movement, or even just take some photographs and wait till next spring, and then you can move them then. Compost. All of this stuff now that you're starting to cut back, cut it down nice and small, stick it in the compost heap. Keep turning it every few weeks before it gets too cold, and then that will break down to beautiful rocket fuel for your plants next year. Same or related is leaf mould. We're obviously not ready yet. We've still got a few weeks of beautiful sunshine, beautiful leaves on the trees as they start to turn their yellows and reds and all the different hues of the fall. But get yourself prepped for it. Get yourself a nice little area, build a little chicken wire area, or even a pallet, an area out of pallets, or just a couple of rubbish bags. Get an area set aside, ready to take all those beautiful leaves and turn that into leaf mould, which is such a fantastic. And then all things bulbs. Thinking about planting, where you're going to plant your spring flowering bulbs, or what bulbs you want. You should be buying them over the next couple of weeks, ready to plant them in sort of mid-October time. And all these beautiful summer flowering bulbs, you should be getting ready to put them to bed for the winter. Start lifting them now. If they flowered, start lifting them, let them dry out somewhere nice and shady. And when the frost comes, any other ones that you've still got in the ground that have been flowering, get them out and start drying them out and get them ready for their winter bedtime. Because the more you keep, the more you'll have for next year. Job's a good one.